Now, let's take a walkthrough of our platform. Our platform covers not only all of your hosting needs, but also most of your DevOps needs. It is a single tool that covers the application lifecycle from development to production and scaling. You only need to write your code, including a single or a few YAML files that specify your desired infrastructure, commit it to Git, and push. You don't need to set up anything manually. The web server is already set up and configured, as is any database, search engine, or cache that you specify. Every branch you push can be made a fully independent environment, complete with your application code, a copy of your database, a copy of your search index, a copy of your user files, everything. Its automatically generated URL can be sent to stakeholders or automated CI systems. It really is, what would my site look like if I merged this to production every time? You can use these concepts to replicate a traditional environment, staging, production workflow, or even to give every feature its own effective staging environment before merging to production, empowering you to use Git flow-like methodologies even better. You could also have an intermediary integration branch for several other branches. Our platform respects the structures of branches. It's entirely up to you. So let's set up a project. From here on the console, we will actually select Create Project. And you'll see that from these projects, we'll have several different options of what we can build. Today, we'll explore our project with a demo project already pre-built. What is a project? A project is mapped to a Git repository containing a config.yaml file. A project can contain multiple apps and data services that run in their own isolated containers. Each branch of a project will be deployed in its own environment, duplicating all the containers. This includes production, staging, and preview environments. The user will then have to choose the region to deploy the project to. We have global regions available on the major hyperscalers, AWS, Azure, GCP, as well as 2 sovereign options in France, Orange and OVH. New regions have and can be opened as business opportunities arise. Here you can see the specific regions, and we'll select CH1. As you note, there is an energy grid carbon intensity notification underneath those regions. At Platform SH, we are committed to reducing our environmental impact as well as our clients. Whenever you create a project with us, we provide information about the electricity grid provider for that region. You can view the average carbon intensity of the energy grid in grams of CO2 equivalent per kilowatt hour. These data sets are sourced from an annual average, which we update as new information becomes available. Let's create the project. Now you'll see the following steps to begin creating our project locally as it builds. Let's set up a project locally so that we can make some changes to staging and then deploy to the platform. Now that we have the project cloned, we can take a look at it directly from our IDE. Now we can see our cloned repository here in my IDE. You'll note we have a front end, a back end, and here we actually have a config YAML file. Our config YAML file contains all the things that we need for our project configuration, such as application, services, as well as any routing that we would need necessary for our project. Here you can see we have a front end running node.js 18, as well as a back end running Python 3.12. Also, we could include any additional services such as Redis, MySQL, or anything along those lines. Also, we have our router configuration. This is where we would have anything we need from a redirect perspective for HTTP and HTTPS. At this point, our project has been created and ready for us to apply code. First step, we will connect our directory directly to our project. Now that we've connected our project, we can then deploy our changes directly to the platform by a simple git push. Now, during this build process, What we're going to do is we're going to transform the source code pushed by a developer into an artifact that will be deployed on our infrastructure. The steps that are happening right now are as follows. Validate configuration. The configuration is checked by validating the .platform directory and scanning the repository for any app configuration to validate. Pull container images. Any container images that have been built before and that don't have any changes are pulled to be reused. Install dependencies. If you have any specified additional global dependencies, they're downloaded during this step. This is useful for commands you may need in the build hook. Run build flavor commands. For some languages, such as node.js and PHP, a series of standard commands are run based on the build flavor. You can change the flavor of ours or skip the commands entirely by specifying it in your config YAML file. Run build hook. The build hook comprises of one or more shell commands that you write to finish creating your project and production code base. It could be compiling SAS files, running a bundler, rearranging files on disk, or just compiling. The committed build hook runs in the build container. During this time, commands have write access to the file system, but there aren't connections to other containers, such as services and other apps. Note that you can cancel deployments stuck within the build hook. Finally, we reach the freeze app container. The file system is frozen and produces a read-only container image, which is the final build artifact. Now, that moves us to the deploy process. The deploy process connects each container from the build process and all services. The connections are defined in your app and services configuration YAML file. So unlike the build process, you can now access the containers, but the application file system is read-only. This process is of a few steps, such as holding the requests. Incoming requests are held to prevent service interruption. On mount current containers, any previous containers are disconnected from their file system mounts. Mount the file systems. Now the writable file system is connected to the new containers. New branches have file systems already cloned from their parent environments. Then we can expose services. Networking connections are open between any containers specified in your app and services configuration. Then we'll run the pre-start commands. The commands necessary to start your app are finally run. Often this stage will only include a start command, which is restarted if ever terminated going forward. You may also, however, define a pre-start command. When you need to run per instance actions, in this case, as you might expect, the pre-start command is run, then the start command. Finally, we'll run deploy hook. The deploy hook is any number of shell commands you can run to finish your deployment. This can include carrying caches, running database migrations, and setting configurations that require relationship information. Now we're ready to serve requests. Incoming requests to your newly deployed application are now allowed. After the deploy process is over, any commands in your post-deploy hook are run. As you can see, our project has finished deploying. And we are able to go back to our console and open the demo app directly from our unique URL. We've now successfully deployed, and now we can create our first preview environment. From here, we'll actually branch into a staging environment. And we will get a bit-for-bit clone directly into a staging environment, ready for additional changes and deployments. While that's happening, let's take a look at the console. Within the console, we can actually see the additional environments, production, as well as the staging that is being cloned to right now. On the bottom left-hand side, we can actually see an architecture brief overview of actually what's associated with our apps and services. Let's take a look at the routes file. In the routes file configuration, you'll note everything that we needed within our configuration. So you'll see our front end, as well as our back end, services, and our actual route configuration.